She chose another man. The hospital chose me. I chose silence. The call came at 2:13 a.m. Not the kind you ignore. Not the kind that lets you return to sleep. It rang once, twice, then again, as if someone wanted to drag me out of whatever life I thought I still had left. I stared at the screen. Her name, Maya, my wife, my stranger. I let it ring until it almost died, then I picked up. A voice I didn't recognize spoke. A man, too calm, too professional. Is this her husband? The word hit harder than it should have. Husband, as if that title still belonged to me. Yes, there's been an accident. A pause. People always pause before they deliver something poisonous. She's stable, but she's asking for you. Of course she was. Of course she remembered me now, when the world had knocked her down hard enough to make her crawl back toward the only place she knew she'd still find a heartbeat, mine. I got dressed without thinking. Jeans, jacket, keys, nothing else. As I walked toward the door, I noticed her scarf hanging on the chair, the one she wore the night she told me she was staying with friends. The night I learned those friends had names, and hands, and intentions she no longer bothered to hide. That scarf had smelled like him when she came home. I shut the door behind me, and I drove into a night that suddenly felt like it was watching me. Hospitals always smell like endings. Sterile endings, clean endings, the kind that sneak up on you without warning. I walked through the sliding doors, my footsteps echoing more loudly than they should. The reception lights made everything look too sharp, too exposed. "She's in room 314, the nurse said without even asking who I was. Her eyes softened for a moment. "She's lucky you answered." Lucky? Funny word. When I entered the hallway, I saw her through the window before she saw me. Maya. Bruised, shaken, small in a bed built for someone stronger. Her eyes were closed, but the corners were swollen, not from the accident, from crying. I stepped inside. The room hummed with machinery. Her breath trembled when she heard me. "You came," she whispered. She didn't look at me. She looked through me, like she always had, toward some invisible version of me she preferred over the one standing here. "What happened?" I asked. Silence. Then a lie. I don't remember." She remembered. They always do. They just choose which version to share. There was a bruise on her shoulder that wasn't from any car crash. The shape was wrong. Too deliberate. Fingers. Someone's grip. His grip. But I didn't ask. I didn't need to. The betrayal had never truly ended. It had only shifted, changed form, became something darker. A nurse entered the room, placing a clipboard on the table beside her. "She listed you as her emergency contact," she said with a gentle smile. I nodded. Of course she did. Of course I was still the man she relied on when everything else collapsed. The man she broke, but kept on a shelf for when she needed him. I looked at Maya again. She finally met my eyes. And that was the moment I knew. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the version of me who still cared. The next morning, she slept, or pretended to. I couldn't tell anymore. I sat in the chair beside her bed, scrolling through my phone like any bored husband keeping vigil. But I wasn't bored. I was digging, piece by piece. The first clue came from her lock screen, a message preview she didn't expect me to see. "He knows. Don't say anything." A name I recognized immediately. The same man who'd erased boundaries, marriage lines, promises, all with a single touch. My jaw tightened, but my expression didn't change. I'd learned to wear calm the way she wore excuses, effortlessly. While she rested, I stepped into the corridor and called a private investigator I had hired months ago, one she didn't know existed. "I need the latest report," I said. "It's bad," he replied. "Are you sure?" "Yes." 10 minutes later, the documents hit my inbox. Photos, screenshots, hotel timestamps. Her handwriting signing in, his signing out minutes later. An entire double life laid out in digital bloodstains. When I returned to her room, she was awake, pretending she wasn't startled. "Where were you?" she asked. "Getting coffee." Her eyes darted to the cup. Empty, dry, clearly untouched. She noticed, but she said nothing. Suspicion seeped into her expression. A flicker of fear. Good. For the first time, she didn't know what I knew. I watched her fingers tremble against the blanket. I'm sorry," she whispered suddenly, voice cracking. Interesting. She was apologizing without knowing what she'd been caught in. Or maybe she knew everything. Betrayers usually do. You don't have to explain, I said calmly. Relief washed over her face, like she thought I was still the man she could shape, but inside, something cold sharpened. The truth was nearly complete. Only one piece remained: her hospital admission report. I waited until she drifted off again, then walked to the nurse's station. "Can I confirm something about my wife's injuries?" I asked gently, showing concern I didn't feel. "Of course." The nurse checked the chart, unaware of what she was unlocking. "The bruising pattern, this wasn't from the accident," she said quietly. "It appears she was grabbed, hard. There were defensive markings too. Defensive, meaning she wasn't running toward him, she was running from him. The betrayal hadn't ended the way she imagined. And maybe that realization alone should have made me feel something. But I didn't. Not anymore. When she woke again, I was seated directly beside her, the investigator's file in my lap. She looked at it, then at me, her face drained of color. "Is that everything?" I said quietly, and I handed it to her. She didn't open it at first. Her hands hovered above the folder, shaking so violently the papers rattled inside. "Maybe we should talk later," she whispered. "No," I replied. "Now." She swallowed hard, then flipped the pages. Photo, after photo, after photo. Her breath hitched each time the truth stared back at her. I can explain," she whispered. "No explanations." "But," I raised a hand. Her voice died instantly. For the first time in years, she realized she no longer controlled the momentum of the conversation. "What happened last night?" I asked. She froze. I wasn't asking about the affair, I already knew that part. I was asking about the bruises, the panic, the man who told her not to say anything. Tears welled in her eyes, her lips parted, then closed again. She wasn't protecting him, she was protecting herself from the truth of what he'd done. "He hit you," I said quietly, inhaled sharply, then nodded once. The smallest, weakest motion I'd ever seen from her. "And you ran," I continued. Another nod. And he followed. A third. The room fell silent. She wasn't the villain in that specific moment, but she wasn't innocent of everything else. And she knew it. "Maya," I whispered, colder than the hospital air around us, "you chose him." She broke. Right there, right in front of me. The dam snapped and sobs poured out of a woman who had always been too proud to beg. "I'm sorry," she cried. "Please, don't leave me." I watched her, calmly, detached. Because the truth wasn't that she feared losing me. She feared losing what I'd provided: stability, protection, a home, a life she had gambled with and lost. That afternoon, the doctor came in with discharge papers. Maya clung to my arm, terrified I'd disappear the moment she closed her eyes. But I didn't. Not yet. I walked her to the car slowly, letting her lean on me, letting her believe, for a few more minutes, that the world she shattered could be taped back together. When we reached home, she hesitated at the door, as if the house itself might judge her. I unlocked it. She stepped inside and froze. Because the living room was empty. Not messy, Not rearranged. Empty. Furniture gone. Closets cleared. Walls bare. Only one suitcase sat by the couch. Hers. She turned to me, horror stretching across her face. What is this? My voice was calm, almost gentle. Your new beginning. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the wall for balance. You're kicking me out? No, I said. You left long before today. She shook her head violently. No, I can fix this. I swear. I'll change. I stepped closer. No, Maya, you won't. Her breath came in shallow bursts. You're abandoning me when I'm hurt? I didn't abandon you, I replied. I saved you. I got you home. I made sure you survived. A pause. Now you survive on your own. Her eyes widened with raw animal panic. Please, don't do this. I have nowhere to go. I picked up her suitcase and placed it gently outside the door. You had somewhere to go, I said quietly. You chose him. The sentence sliced through the air. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing my name, begging for forgiveness. I listened, silently, without a flicker of anger, without a drop of pity. Then I closed the door and locked it. That night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in years, my mind wasn't a battlefield. It was clear, calm. I sat in the center of the empty living room. The same room where she'd laughed, lied, and loved a man who wasn't me. But none of that mattered anymore. Betrayal doesn't destroy you all at once. It erodes you grain by grain, until one day you notice you're dust. Tonight I gathered the pieces of myself she had scattered, and I let them fall exactly where I chose. There were no messages from her, no calls, no pounding on the door. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was honest. I stood and looked at the doorway where she'd begged, where she'd broken, and something inside me settled. Not revenge, not victory, just clarity. She had chosen another man. The hospital had chosen me. But I chose silence, my final act of love, and my final act of freedom. When I turned off the lights, a last thought passed through me. Cold, quiet, final. Some things break, some people shatter, and some doors stay closed forever.